He didn't just play tough men, he was one. Richard Boone lived like someone who'd earned his scars. War veteran, working-class jobs, a face that looked carved from rock, and a voice that sounded like gravel and whiskey. But here's the twist most people miss. Behind the glare was a reader, a thinker, and a stubborn defender of respect on set. And that last part is where things get interesting, especially when another Hollywood titan with a volcanic ego walked into the room. He started far from fame, and even farther from acting. Boone was born in Los Angeles in 1917, raised in a family that valued brains as much as hustle. He tried the college route at Stanford, got bored, and bailed. Then came a tour of hard jobs: oilfield labor, bartending, painting. Real work, the kind that puts grit under your nails and stories in your pocket. When World War II arrived, he enlisted in the Navy and served in the Pacific as an aviation ordnance man. He saw danger up close and came home with a different kind of seriousness. That discipline shaped everything he did later. It's part of why his screen presence felt so real. He'd already lived through high stakes. After the war, he went east, not west, to learn the craft. Instead of running straight to a studio lot, Boone headed to New York and studied acting with people who took it seriously. Stage work came first: small roles, reps, rejection, patience, all the simple, unglamorous pieces that actually make a long career possible. Then, Hollywood noticed. A few strong film parts in the early 50s laid the foundation for what came next. Then came the black card with the chess knight. Have Gun, Will Travel turned Richard Boone into a national obsession. As Paladin, the educated, black-clad problem solver who quoted poetry and solved trouble, he made a Western feel almost philosophical. Audiences loved that mix of brain and steel. The show ran from 1957 to 1963, earned major nominations, and made Boone the guy other actors watched closely. Paladin wasn't a swaggering cowboy. He was a man who thought before he drew. That was new, that was cool, and it stuck. But Boone didn't like one-note scripts. He pushed for nuance. On and off set, he argued for stories with moral complexity: justice, loyalty, gray areas. After Have Gun, Will Travel, he experimented with The Richard Boone Show, an anthology that let him and a repertory company play different characters every week. Critics praised the ambition even if the ratings weren't kind. Shows fade, ideas linger. Boone kept chasing material that challenged him. He also bet big on a place most studios only used for postcards. Tired of the churn, Boone moved to Hawaii in the mid-60s. He wasn't there just to relax. He wanted to help build a real film footprint on the islands. He lobbied hard for productions to shoot there for real, not just fly in for pretty shots. That push helped influence Hawaii Five-0 to film entirely in the state, an industry shift that changed paychecks and opportunity for locals. Authenticity mattered to him. So did community. Boone's life at home wasn't Hollywood chaotic. 3 marriages in total, but the third, Claire McCallion, was the keeper. They had a son, Peter, who even popped up in a few episodes of Have Gun, Will Travel as a kid. When work took them back to the mainland, Boone taught acting in Florida for a spell. The tough guy who glared on camera gave advice gently off it. He liked building people. That small fact tells you more about who he was than any poster. Now for the collision course fans still whisper about. Boone valued respect toward crew, co-stars, everyone. He tolerated egos if they came with talent, but grandstanding, bulldozing, using power to crowd others off the screen, that's where he drew the line. And few stars of that era were as force-of-nature ambitious as Kirk Douglas. The two men even crossed paths on Man Without a Star in 1955. On paper, that's just a credit. In reality, it paired Boone's "we're a team" mindset with Douglas's "I will win the room" energy. Sparks were inevitable, even if the exact moment stayed behind closed doors. Why the friction? Start with 2 codes. Boone came from the stage, the Navy, and the ethic of collaboration. He fought for fairness in scripts and scenes. Douglas, by his own words, believed in pushing, competing, and clawing to the top. That drive made him a legend. It also made him a storm system wherever he went. In interviews and memoirs, Douglas is frank about his ambition and his certainty that the best belong at the top. To Boone, that sounded like my way or step aside. Two truths can't exist at once. Douglas could be a brilliant actor and a dominating presence. Boone could respect the craft and resent the steamroller. The debate that still follows Douglas didn't calm things down. For years, Douglas was praised for breaking the blacklist by putting Dalton Trumbo's real name on Spartacus. It's a proud chapter in his story. It's also more complicated than one headline. Historians point out that Otto Preminger publicly hired Trumbo for Exodus months earlier, and Douglas's own producer, Edward Lewis, claimed he, not Douglas, brought Trumbo aboard Spartacus. The bigger point, the blacklist cracked because many people took risks, not because one man did. Boone, the collaborator, likely nodded at that. Power is real, so is the team. And Douglas's legacy is still being re-examined by his own family. Just weeks ago, Michael Douglas revisited a tender but tense chapter, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It was his father's dream project, and Michael had to tell him he wouldn't be the star in the movie version. That public reflection shows how powerful, complicated, and sometimes bruising Kirk's presence could be, even at home. Respect, friction, pride, all mixed together. It helps explain why certain peers bristled around him while still admiring the work. Back to Boone, he didn't campaign for favorite son status. He wasn't a schmoozer. He didn't chase most beloved headlines. He chose roles that interested him, rugged villains in The Tall T, laconic men with hidden depth, or seasoned antagonists who could rattle John Wayne in Big Jake and The Shootist. He even voiced a dragon, Smaug, in the classic animated The Hobbit. Smart choices, steady work, zero need to perform for the gossip pages. That's how you build a reputation that lasts. People who worked with him remember a fierce honesty. Boone mentored young actors in Hawaii and later in Florida. He'd push them to find the human underneath the posture. He believed the best performances weren't loud, they were true. If something smelled fake, he'd say so. That directness, blunt, sometimes cutting, made him respected and, yes, occasionally difficult. But it always came from the same place. Protect the scene, protect the story, protect the people doing the work. The rumor mill around Boone versus Douglas will never have a neat ending. Hollywood rarely gives us official minutes when two big personalities clash. What we do have are patterns. Boone stood up for crews and co-stars. Douglas thrived by seizing control. Put those traits together and you don't need a transcript to picture the temperature in the room. Was it pure hatred? Some stories say the glare was real. Other accounts suggest mutual tolerance dressed like a standoff. The safe read is this. They represented two different ideas of how power should move on set. That tension doesn't need exaggeration to be compelling. When the lights dimmed, Boone shows dignity. He shifted from island life back to St. Augustine, Florida. He kept acting when projects felt right. He taught, he wrote, he lived smaller on purpose. In January 1981, after a harsh fight with throat cancer, he died at home. His ashes were scattered in the Pacific off Hawaii, a final return to the waters he loved and the state he'd helped put on the production map. It's a simple, quiet ending for a man who preferred truth to noise. So what do we do with the story of Boone and Douglas? We hold both sides in our hands. Douglas, the blazing star who bulldozed obstacles and sometimes people, a man whose ambition helped push bold credits onto the screen, but whose role in the blacklist's fall is best understood as one piece of a larger movement. Boone, the soldier-turned-actor who guarded respect like it was sacred, a craftsman who demanded fairness and bristled at the cult of the spotlight. Two paths, two codes. One industry that needs both fire and conscience to make anything great. Here's the part worth remembering. Legends are often built on force. Legacies are built on how you treat people when no one's watching. Boone didn't need to win the room. He needed to look the crew in the eye and know he'd kept the work honest.
That's rarer than it sounds. It's also why the Paladin silhouette still feels so cool today. Intelligence, restraint, a spine. In an era obsessed with whoever shouts the loudest, Richard Boone showed that control can be louder. And yes, there's a reason fans still talk about that clash. It wasn't just gossip, it was a mirror. The Boone-Douglas tension puts a question to anyone who cares about movies. Do you want the kind of greatness that dominates or the kind that elevates? One isn't automatically better than the other, but they're not the same. And the sets where they collide are where stories about hate and feuds are born. Next time you see Paladin step into a mess with a calm face and a sharp mind, think about the man who built that character from lived experience: war, work, theater, and a stubborn belief in respect. Think about the rooms he walked out of because the vibe wasn't right. Think about the ocean he chose as a final resting place. When you do, the legend gets clearer. Not louder, clearer. And maybe that's the real power Boone had all along. One last layer people overlook. Boone's voice and mind kept working even when his body started failing. In the late 1970s, he lent that rumbling baritone to fantasy, voicing Smaug in the classic animated Hobbit, and he treated it like Shakespeare: pace, pause, menace. It proved something critics admit now. He wasn't trapped in one genre. He simply chose roles that felt honest. Former crew also remembered his quiet generosity. If a grip needed time, he covered. If a young actor froze, he reset the tone and tried again. That steadiness wasn't soft. It was strong without shouting. And it came from the same code that made him clash with steamrollers. Put it together and you get a rare package. A star who could lead without swallowing the room. That's why the Paladin still pops in black and white photos today. The suit is sharp, sure, but it's the eyes. They say, think first. It's also why the Hawaii chapter matters. He helped build work where people lived, not just where studios pointed. When you zoom out, the headline isn't the feud. It's the example. Master the craft, guard your respect, and leave the place better than you found it. Always.